Hey, what's going on, everyone? Cardboard.Capitan here, and right before the release of Edge of Eternities, I want to share what I think the top 10 cards of the format are going to be, as well as meta predictions such as what decks will thrive in the format, as well as decks that I think people will try. So, this is for Alchemy, and without further ado, let's go to number 10. I want to give an honorary mention. Checklands and Shocklands, they're going to be included into the Alchemy format. So rip your gold wildcards, unless you have the cards from previous sets. Okay, number 10, Timeline Color. I think this is going to be a pain in the behind to remove, just because even if it goes to the graveyard, you can bring it back for its warp cost. And it does have haste, so it can come out as soon as it comes into play, swinging. So it's a constant source of damage, but can also be used for sacrifice, and there's plenty of sacrifice-style effects in this format. It is a Drix Warlock, which is a weird set of creature types. Not much support as far as I know. I don't know if it's better or worse than Bloodghast, though, because you can bring back Bloodghast multiple times a turn if you can drop multiple lands per turn, or you have a fetch land such as Fabled Passage. So definitely have to play around with it, see how it fits in. Number 9, Emissary Escort. I see it in an affinity deck. There's a couple of blue affinity cards. One is some flying armor from the Final Fantasy set, and there's another one from the Ether Drift set. So at its base level, it's a 0/4 for 2 mana. But once those affinity cards start coming down, then this can grow real quick. Only thing I really don't like is it has no sort of evasion, like flying or trample or anything like that, so might be worse than I'm predicting, but I think it's going to be interesting to try out in Affinity at the very least. Okay, next card, Siege Ship Brewtender. It's just good utility. It's 2/3 for 2 mana, which is nice to start. It also mills when it comes into play, and the only downside is it won't give you a card back when you mill. However, its activated ability lets you sacrifice it and get a creature or spacecraft card from your graveyard into play. See this fitting into Yuna real well. Yuna, I've seen it white and green and white and green and red. White and green and black, it opens up some possibilities such as Overlord of the Baelmerk being a big one. So I think people are going to try it out at least. The only downside is Virtue of Persistence is rotating out, and I saw that in a couple of unit decks, so see. Consult the star charts. I see this as a good dig spell for blue. It reminds me of a card from that cost 4 that rotated out a while back, but it is an instant, unlike the 3 mana. I'm forgetting the names of cards, but there's a 3 mana, 2 colorless, 1 blue. Search the top 5 cards of your library. And however, that's the sorcery, so I think this is going to see play in instant decks. I've heard people talking about Jeskai and Sultai being control decks, and this can fit right in. I do wonder if this is going to push counter-based control too, because I see that as a way of holding the board in early rounds, and a lot of the decks you're seeing right now, like Mobilize and Landfall, need that early turn to strike, and if you can counter their game plan early on, then you have a chance to bring out your board wipes and other spells where you can get card advantage later on in the game. So, we'll see. Servandum Van Dam? Nah, Servandum Sunstar Exemplar. It's a Vigilance Menace creature. 2/2 for 2 mana. And it benefits from when your creatures go to the graveyard. Good creature types. And it has an effect if it dies or is put into exile while its power 4 or greater. It has no way of sacrificing your own creatures on its own, so it's going to need some support, but I think this is great early threat that the opponent must answer, or else get punished later on. Number 5, Diadron. I'm not sure how you say that. Diadron Synthesis Amalgam. At minimum, a 2/3 and scales up. So the wording on the text: Diadron enters with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it, not how much you spent to pay for X. So you always get 2/3 when you cast it, even if X is 0. But it's good early game, good late game. I see this fitting into Hardened Bonds decks. Whenever you attack, you remove a +1/+1 counter from each of 2 creatures you control. So you'll need other creatures or ways to put +1/+1 counters on other creatures. But good card, I think, overall. Plus it has Trample innately on it, so you just need a way to power it up. Anyway, number 4, Weapons Manufacturing. This is a fun card. Whenever non-token artifact you control enters, create a colorless artifact token. Name munitions with when this token leaves the battlefield. It deals 2 damage to any target. So what's interesting is once these artifact tokens come into play, even if they're bounced, exiled, they're going to be doing damage. So you just need a good way to sacrifice these tokens. There's multiple ways right now in the format. Rottenmouth Viper, when you cast it, you can sacrifice a Phantom Train. That's an activated ability. You can sacrifice an artifact. The only thing is, are there enough good artifacts to support this card? And another thing to note, it does nothing for 2 mana, so this doesn't start doing stuff until you play artifacts, and even then, you'll need those artifacts to do some. So, good example, Monument of Endurance. That's 3 mana, and it doesn't do anything until you start discarding cards. So, I think 2 is a nicer spot than 3. So, see how this goes. Okay, so Cosmo Grand Zenith. It's very reminiscent of Corey Steelcutter, except this is a creature. And the creature tokens it produces don't have haste, don't have trample, and however, this is a repeatable effect you can do each turn. I think what's interesting too is that this card costs 3, so you can drop this after Wayfarer's Enchantment and give this the Mobilize effect. Also worth noting, removal overall in the new Alchemy format feels weaker. So a lot of red based removal is not going to hit that 4 toughness of this card. I think there's Suplex and there's a Dragon Breath card that are going to remove this, so those might see more play. The standard red removal that just rotated out was Shove Aside, and that was 3 mana, so maybe people are going to try Suplex and the other card as red removal. Market Back Walker seems like a cute combo with this, because you can drop this on turn 2, then drop Market Back Walker for 0, and then you create 2 1/1 white human soldier creatures. But that might just be junk, so. Okay, Seam Rip. It is an enchantment card that's going to take out a lot of 2 mana or less permanents once it comes into play, notably cards such as Wayfarer's Guidance and Tifa. So definitely gonna see play against those at least. Might be better as a sideboard card once the meta stabilizes, but I think people are gonna stick with the decks they're familiar with until they try a new deck. I do see this being really good with Mothlight Processionist. Mothlight Processionist is going to give all your enchantment spells Convoke, so you can play the Processionist, tap it to pay for Seam Rip, and then possibly get more Processionists in play. Now, number 1 is Umbral Collar Strider. Back in the day, Woe Strider... Oh, whoa. Oops. Okay, so I messed up. It's Umbral Collar Zealot. But Woe Strider was a card I played back in the day, which had very similar style of play and make a sheep token, and you can sacrifice it to scry. So, very reminiscent of that card. It does have a smaller casting cost, good stats for 2, and it's splashable in many kinds of decks. I do see this also fitting in different archetypes of decks, such as Aristocrats, Weapons Manufacturing from a previous slide, and other decks that are going to want to sacrifice their creatures or artifacts. So overall, I put it in number 1 for efficiency, strength, and versatility. As far as how the meta will evolve, I think Mobilize will still be a threat, especially with the Shocklands and the Checklands coming into play. Landfall decks are going to lose Bill, but can easily fit Ride the Shoe Puff. I don't know if that's the exact card they're going to fit, because it does mean that they're giving up a turn early on, not to play a creature, but to play an enchantment. So maybe they'll find another creature to replace Bristly Bill with. We'll see. As far as new decks, I think green-white enchantments will be strong. I tried playing some versions with it. It does Goldfish pretty well. Like, you can drop a turn 1 Saz's Chocobo, or a turn 1 District Mascot, turn 2... I forget the Chocobo side quest. Drop that, turn 3... Chocomog, and then turn 4 swing in for lethal. As you sacrifice that burst power for stabilizations tools such as Harn Bonds or Nactmoon, then you throw off the balance of the deck. So I think a lot of the experimentation that's going to come is going to come from finding that sweet spot of burst power to stabilization. Okay, so self-harm black aggro. You know what I want to use if you played Magic for a while, but I don't know how YouTube's gonna deal with censorship and so on. So I'll call it self-harm black, but the basic idea is you got cards that reduce your life points and you want to be as aggressive as possible. So Cecil, for example, is a 2/3 death touch for 1. Dark Confidant, you can reveal a card at the beginning of your upkeep and lose life equal to that card's converted mana cost. A bunch of cards that are gonna give you more power for you losing life. I'm not sure if pure black is the option. Adding in red adds in burn. You can also do the last ride, and there is a card in Alchemy that when it crews a vehicle at the end of combat, sacrifice that vehicle and then deal damage equal to that vehicle's power to any target you choose. So I see another option is going Rakdos, losing your life points, and doing that combo to throw the car at your opponent, basically. So Rakdos Snakes on a Train, that's the what I'm calling the munitions deck for now. The only thing I do worry is it's going to take time to build up the munitions token, so could work. Have to see how it can compete with the faster decks of the format, though. Aristocrats, we'll see play. Plenty of options there, even including some cards from Aetherdrift like Gas Guzzler, and there's another sacrifice there, maybe Ketramos even. But what's nice about Aristocrats, they do include some life gain, so that might be helpful. But right now there's plenty of options there, so I don't know what would be a good, like, standard cards for that. Finally, I want to say that Control will struggle and likely will run White. White has some of the best removal right now. The other card that was a good control color was Black from previous sets, but Black loses so much, such as Shoot the Sheriff, Bitter Triumph, as targeted removal, even Virtue of Persistence. It also loses board wipes, notably Deadly Cover-Up. It does have some sacrificed based removal, but stuff like Season of the Witch. No, it's the Black Season. I know it's not Season of the Witch, but the Black Season only lets both players sacrifice at most 5 creatures. There's also Blasphemous Edict, and that's 13 creatures, so that might be the safer option. But I think White out the gates is going to be the stronger removal color. So, alright. That's all I want to say on that. Again, Edge of Eternities is coming, I believe, the end of the week. Or tomorrow. I'm not too sure. I haven't been keeping track of it, but when it comes out, it comes out. So, with that said, thanks for watching. You can find me on X under the username Cardboard.Capitan. You can find me on Moxfield under the username Cardboard_Capitan, where I'll place primarily decks, play in Alchemy. And yeah, if you enjoyed the content, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you next time.